Okay, so you probably have a smartphone in your pocket right now. Or maybe you're watching this explainer on a top-of-the-line laptop. And as a society, we're completely obsessed with upgrading our tech, right? We're always marveling at the newest sensors, the fastest processors, the latest data networks. But we often completely overlook the most sophisticated piece of hardware in the room, the one actually holding the device.
Which really forces you to step back and ask a pretty wild question. What actually is the most advanced technology in the known universe? Is it a massive quantum computer? Some incredibly complex deep space satellite? Maybe a predictive AI cluster?
No way. It's you! The biological machine that's processing my words right this very second is an absolute masterpiece of engineering that modern tech companies can literally only dream of replicating. We're just so used to thinking of ourselves as mere flesh and bone that we completely miss the profound biomechanics of our own existence.
Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're doing a methodical teardown of our living technology across 5 key areas: biological sensors and antennas, power and data grids, the neural supercomputer, the biological source code, and finally, science versus mystical symbolism.
Section 1. Biological sensors and antennas. Biological input hardware. Let's look at the incredible receivers you're walking around with. Every piece of high-end technology needs input hardware to read its environment, right? Well, your biological equivalents are staggering. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can map the exact biological counterparts of a digital camera straight onto the human eye. This isn't just a loose metaphor, it's parallel engineering. A standard camera hardware needs a focusing lens, an aperture, an image sensor, and a data cable. In your biology, your cornea and lens gather and focus the light. Your iris acts as the aperture, mechanically regulating the volume of light coming in. Your retina is quite literally your biological image sensor, instantly converting incoming photons into electrical signals. And that optic nerve, that is your physical data cable, transmitting those signals straight into your internal processor.
And right next to those optical sensors, you've got your biological frequency analyzers, your ears. The mechanical conversion process happening here is just astonishing. I want you to think of your ears as functioning exactly like 2 meaty satellite dishes strapped to the sides of your head. Step 1, they capture invisible sound waves straight out of the air. Step 2, those waves mechanically vibrate your eardrum and these tiny, tiny bones. Step 3, and this is where the precision is just mind-blowing, specialized hair cells inside your cochlea actually decode those specific frequencies. And finally, step 4, those decoded frequencies are converted into electrical impulses and sent straight to the brain. Your body is literally catching invisible waves and decoding them into the experience of sound all day, every day.
But hey, your sensory input doesn't stop there. Think about your hair for a second. These are essentially biological antennas. Every single hair follicle on your body is directly connected to a sensory nerve. Because these hairs physically protrude outward, they're actually detecting invisible forces in the environment before anything ever even touches your skin. They think of static electricity, tiny air movements, shifts in humidity and temperature. They are basically your early warning environmental receivers. We see this kind of multimodal detection utilized heavily in nature, like with cat whiskers or insect antennas, to give them heightened spatial awareness. But you know what? Your body comes equipped with this exact same high-tech detection system.
And right beneath those antennas lies your skin, which acts as this massive continuous sensor array. The galvanic skin response highlights a really fascinating biological reality. Your skin actually conducts electricity slightly. It's an energetic sensor constantly monitoring pressure, pain, and electrical changes. In fact, this slight electrical conductivity is exactly what biometric devices and lie detectors tap into to get their data. When you think about it, you are essentially walking around in a highly sensitive data-gathering biological suit.
Moving right along to Section 2, Power and Data Grids, Systemic Infrastructure.
Because, let's be real, all of those incredibly advanced sensors are completely useless without the infrastructure to power them and a network to route all that data. The main engine of our system is the heart. And this brilliantly illustrates how the heart acts as a biological electromagnetic generator. This is grounded in pure, measurable physics. The heart operates through this constant, rhythmic electrical synchronization. Just like a mechanical generator pushes power through a building, your heart's electrical pulses provide systemic regulation for your entire body. It creates electromagnetic fields so strong they can actually be measured by an ECG or magnetocardiography. It is quite literally the electrical pulse keeping your grid online.
So the heart provides the power pulse, right? But how does all that data actually travel? Through a vast, deeply complex electrical infrastructure. Your nervous system is a literal communication network. It moves information rapidly across your entire body, relying on real voltage changes, ion exchanges, and synaptic transmissions. And at the absolute center of it all is the spine. Think of your spine as the main signal highway, or the central transmission tower. It takes all that electrochemical data captured by your skin, your eyes, and your biological antennas, and it rockets it inward to be processed.
Which brings us to Section 3, the neural supercomputer, central processing unit.
Let's move to the CPU and see how this all builds together. Where does all that sensory data actually go? It's fit into something modern tech companies are desperately trying to mimic right now: predictive AI. Artificial intelligence uses massive data sets to simulate alternate realities and predict outcomes. Well, guess what? That is exactly what your brain is already doing, except it is infinitely more energy efficient and adaptive. Your brain acts as a massively parallel computational network. It doesn't just passively record the world like a camera saving an MP4 file. No, it actively reconstructs reality from all those incoming data streams. It uses your memories and your sensory input to imagine the future, simulate alternate scenarios, and predict outcomes in real time so you can safely navigate the world around you.
And the craziest part, we can actually watch this processor working in real time through measurable brainwave activity. Whether we're looking at alpha, beta, theta, or gamma waves, these all represent the physical, rhythmic neural oscillations of your processor hard at work. As your brain decodes massive visual inputs, or say translates chemical signals from your tongue into the complex perception of taste and texture, it operates entirely through these measurable, rhythmic electrical frequencies.
Section 4, the biological source code, foundational OS. But we have to ask, what actually built this supercomputer? What programmed the sensors? So the absolutely crucial point here is that DNA isn't just some poetic metaphor for code. It functions as a literal information system. It's incredibly highly compressed data storage. Just like a software's source code contains the exact logic required for a computer program to run, your DNA stores the exact foundational biological instructions for your growth, repair, and protein synthesis. It dictates how your physical hardware is built and maintained. When you break it down, DNA is simply the most robust, complex software architecture humanity has ever discovered.
And that brings us to Section 5, science versus mystical symbolism, framing the complex. When you have a biological system that is this profoundly complex, humans naturally try to explain it through completely different lenses. On one hand, we have these very strong scientific analogies grounded in measurable reality. Looking at eyes as literal cameras, DNA as actual code, the heart as a generator, and the skin as a sensor array. But on the other hand, we have the mystical or symbolic comparisons, like viewing the spine as Jacob's ladder, or treating thoughts as spiritual frequencies, or defining consciousness as an infinite field. Throughout this explainer, we're just impartially looking at how these two frameworks exist side by side. The first represents established, observable biomechanical engineering. The second represents the deeply poetic, philosophical, and spiritual metaphors humans have historically used to try and grasp the absolute wild experience of just having consciousness. Both of these frameworks exist, but it's really important to differentiate the measurable biological hardware from the beautiful philosophical metaphors. Interestingly enough, there are a few components in the body that kind of sit in a fascinating middle ground between these two perspectives. Take your teeth, for example. Teeth are highly mineralized crystalline structures, and because of that, they exhibit actual piezoelectric behavior, meaning when physical pressure is applied to them, it actually creates a tiny electrical charge inside them. Because of this really unique quartz-like conductive reality, they are frequently wrapped up in mystical interpretations, even though at the end of the day their electrically active nature is just a highly specialized, totally grounded biological trait. So, what does this all mean? I want to leave you with a final thought today. Look back at the systematic teardown we just did. Are you just a simple, passive organic vessel? Or are you, literally, the universe's ultimate masterpiece of engineering? Every single second of every single day, you are operating a biological supercomputer. You're wired with fiber optic equivalents, powered by an internal electromagnetic generator, and you are running on literal, perfectly compressed source code. So the next time you find yourself marveling at some brand new, expensive piece of technology, remember to take a second and marvel at the breathtaking machinery that's looking back at the screen. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. See you next time.